Okay, so in this quick lab, I wanted to talk about the different network types that you have in VirtualBox. So if I click on like my Windows 7 machine and I click on settings and I come down here to network, right now I'm currently attached to NAT, but I have a lot of different things. We're going to actually talk about NAT, bridged, and host only adapters today. We're actually going to be using all three. So by default, if I go to network, you'll notice I'm attached to my NAT. And what that means is that my virtual machine, this Windows 7 virtual machine right here, is sharing the network connection with my host computer. So if you notice right here, we have like all of our different virtual machines right here. All of these things kind of connect to the host machine. That's our physical actual computer. And then we have network access right there. So you can tell that you are on a NAT connection if you type in ipconfig, and we get a 10.0 address. So notice this is 10.0.2.15. Yours might be different, although that is the, if you notice right there, that is the generic default NAT network address, 10.0.2.15. If you have a 10.0 address, that just means that you're connected to a NAT network. So a NAT network is good when we want to have internet access for our virtual machine. So test, you notice that the internet works fine on my virtual machine right now. But where this is not good is if we want our virtual machine to be able to connect to other virtual machines. You'll notice that on here, look, the virtual machines are not connected together, so our virtual machines can't really talk to one another. Or if we wanted our virtual machine to be like a server and host things for external machines to be able to access. So if we just want our virtual machines to have internet access but not really be a big presence on the internet, NAT is good. But again, NAT just means that you're sharing your internet connection with your host machine. So now I'm actually going to close out of this and I'm going to restore my previous snapshot. The next connection that I'm going to try, now notice I closed out of that and I powered off and I restored back to the last snapshot that I had. So I think my last snapshot I called back to genuine. So I'm just going to hit restore, make sure that that's it on that. Every time you change the network adapter, it's important to change that. Okay, so we're going to go to, next thing that we're going to talk about is bridged adapter. So I'm going to click OK. So I went to number 1, my virtual machine says powered off right there. I restored back to a snapshot in which I knew everything was working. Now I go to network, bridged adapter. Okay, power that on. Now the way, while this loads up, the way a bridged adapter works is you get your own physical NIC Carter, your own physical presence on the network. So if you notice right here, like here are all your virtual machines, here's your host machine, here's the internet. The virtual machine is almost a separate computer on the network. And in this instance, we're going to have a 10.5 address. So if I go here and I type in ipconfig, it's going to be 10.5. In this case, it's 10.5.75.51. Your two numbers right here will probably be different. Each one of these is called an octet. Your two octets right there will probably be different than mine, but the key is the first two octets, 10.5. So if we see a 10.5 address, we know that we are the network is recognizing this virtual machine as basically a separate entity on the network. Notice this computer right here, my actual host machine, gets a 10.5 address too. Now this one gets it's 10.5.74.143, and this one's 10.5.75.51. So the network thinks that our virtual machine is a completely separate computer from our host machine on the network, and it gets treated completely separately. This is great if we want our virtual machine to be able to host files, like be a web server or an FTP server, or maybe host some type of game, or share files. So if we want our virtual machine to be connected to the network and we want other machines out on the network or even out on the internet to be able to connect to our virtual machine, bridged adapter is the way to go. You'll notice that I do have internet access. So if I come on to Google Chrome and I hit test, I do have internet access. However, you may notice, especially using Linux, if you're on a bridged network adapter, your connection is going to be slowed down slightly, and also you might notice that like you get some packet loss, which basically means that sometimes you'll download files, and those files might get corrupted somehow. This is due to the way the school network is set up. If you ever want to download large files from the internet, I would do that on a NAT network, not on a bridge network. You should only use a bridge network if you want your virtual machine to be hosting things and you want other computers on the physical network or on the internet to be able to connect to your virtual machine. So if you want other computers to be able to connect to you, then bridged adapter is the way to go. The last one that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to restore the snapshot again right here, my last snapshot. I'm just going to go ahead and restore that. The last network adapter that I'm going to talk about is called a host only network adapter. So I'm going to go down here to host only, and I'm going to click OK and launch. So with a host only network adapter, basically all of our virtual machines right here, you'll notice all of these virtual machines are connected on a network. So all of our virtual machines will be able to talk to one another, and also our host machine will be able to talk to this computer. However, our computer will not have internet access. You notice down here it says no internet access. So our this computer right here does not have internet access. Like if I type in test right here, it's just going to say resolving host and then no internet connection. The reason for that is we've basically created a private network where all of our virtual machines, can communicate with one another, and our host machine can communicate with the computer. You notice I can still access like the network right here, and I can still, if I go to computer and I go to the E drive, I can still access my like VBox server right there. So I can still access the host computer, but I can't access anything outside of this. This is good if we want to create like a test environment where we're going to be setting up maybe some servers and then trying to attack those servers or whatever. We want to make sure that we are on a host only connection. Now the IP address for this should be a 192 address. 192.168.56.101. So this is perfect that this is a 192 address. If you for some reason did not get a 192 address, what you need to do is shut down your computer and then restore back to, so you would go start, shut down your computer, and restore back to a snapshot back in time, and then once you've like restored back to that snapshot, maybe if we restored back to that one before you go up back to the next one, make sure we change it to host only. Sometimes if you don't restore the snapshot and your virtual machine is not powered off, you're going to run into weird errors, and you might get a 168 address. And if you get a 168 address, that just means something went wrong and you have to go back in time. So that's why these snapshots are so important. But as long as you have a 192 address, you're good. Notice like all of these have 192.168.56, and then so all of our virtual machines would be able to connect to one another, and then we would be able to connect to our host machine too, but not the internet. Okay, so hopefully that answers some questions. Let me know if you need anything.